In this recording, we're going to be assessing labelling theory of crime and deviance. So, people involve themselves in some deviant or illegal behaviour, so it's hard to sustain a distinction between deviance and non-deviance. Labelling theory seeks to explain why only some people and some acts are defined as deviant or criminal, while others carrying out similar acts are not. They believe that crime is a social construction. Labelling theorists believe that the law is selectively enforced. So, labelling theorists like Becker believe that as all crime can't be prosecuted, the police operate with pre-consisting conceptions and stereotypical categories of what constitutes trouble, and these influence their responses to behaviour they come across. What action is taken will depend not so much on the actual offence, but on the stereotype of the groups they hold. For example, Cicero studied two US cities that had similar socio-economic profiles and found that they had different crime rates for juveniles because of the different approaches. He found that the fluctuations in the juvenile crime rate were due to the attitudes and authorities to the offenders. He found that justice is negotiable, as the young working class and black males were prosecuted more than the white middle class girls. Overall, the idea of selective law enforcement is useful because it's shown us the social construction of crime statistics and how the impact of the authority can impact crime. And it's shown us how the law isn't equally enforced, and supports the Marx idea and the idea that laws aren't made by the people, as functionalists claim it is in a democracy. The labelling process has been examined by Lemert, who believes in primary and secondary labelling. Primary deviance is the initial act which isn't necessarily criminal, but then there's a label applied, and this may be due to if a person is found guilty. This may then turn into secondary deviance because there may be consequences such as struggling to get a job after. They may be seen as deviant and then it becomes their master status. The individual then may join a subculture as they accept the label and see themselves in that way. Lemert used an example of stuttering in Japan to show the labelling process. In Japan, there seemed to be a higher amount of stuttering compared to another similar area. The deviancy of stuttering was socially constructed because Japan placed an emphasis on public speaking, and someone with a slight speech problem was given a negative label. The speaker would then become more self-conscious and it would become the secondary label. Moreover, Becker believes that the labelling process and societal reaction can lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy and a deviant career, as those labelled face rejection from many social groups. Labelling may lead to further deviance, as the individual may join a deviant group that faces similar problems. Societal reaction and the application of the deviant label produce more deviance than they prevent. For example, Young studied hippie marijuana users in Notting Hill in 1971. He found that drug use to them was a lifestyle, but labelling by the control culture led the hippies to see themselves as outsiders. They then developed into a deviant subculture, and drug use became a central activity. Stan Cohen also studied the mods and rockers in the 1960s. He found that as the media reported the group in a negative way, a moral panic developed, and the group had a self-fulfilling prophecy, which meant that the media worsened the problem they initially set out to solve, because deviance was amplified. Labelling theory is useful as it has raised awareness of the impact that the media might have on the development of moral panics, and Muncie argues that the labelling theory is useful because it's drawn our attention to the role of media defining normal and deviant behaviour. However, McRobbie and Thornton argue that moral panics are now outdated in this era of sophisticated media technology and 24-hour rolling news, because news providers rarely cover anything for a long term, so there is no time for a moral panic to develop. Overall, labelling theory is very useful because it's shown us how an attempt to control deviance could make it worse, because more police means more people are detected. And labelling theory has also given us suggestions on how to reduce crime. For example, Braithwaite said that we ought to think about reintegrative shaming, as most shaming is disintegrative by blaming the criminal, but we need to shame the thing they did, not the actual person. This makes it easier for the individual to get back into society. Evidence has shown that when this has been used, crime rates have been lower. However, the problem with labelling theory is that it doesn't explain the origin of deviance. Left realists also argue that there is not enough focus on the victim, and you could argue that labelling theory is too deterministic. However, this is a very weak criticism because labelling theory is linked to interpretivism, which can never be seen as too deterministic, as they believe in the agency, and labelling theory is not deterministic compared to feminists and traditional Marxists. And in conclusion, Plummer argues that labelling theory has been enormously influential and is embedded in a vast range of contemporary sociology such as moral panics. However, the problem with labelling theory and crime in general is that it's too complicated just to be explained by one theory.